Hi, and welcome to the THC Show with Neil. This is a show where we talk about the truths of our society, about the way our governments are operating and what's not right about that. And there's a lot that's not right about that, so we try to offer a little bit of hope as well and some mechanisms for changing things. Today on the show, I'm very happy to have Glenn from CannaMatch.ca joining me for the 420 session. Jerry Martin will be here for the Martin Medical Moment. And really pleased to have the Candyman, Doug Sikora from the S&M Sweet Shop in Gibsons with us today. And that's one of the main battlefronts going on in this war against medical cannabis users and the cannabis community. So very happy to have him coming up on the show. This shows a lot about what's not right in our world, as I mentioned, and there's a lot of corruption that goes on in this so-called free democratic society that we have here, and that's a lot about why I do this show, is because I'm really not happy with the state of affairs and with how our rights are being abused by these people. You know, freedom is the right to do or not do whatever you want to do or don't want to do, unless you're hurting somebody else. And that's the limit that it goes to. And of course, freedom is a natural right. It's not something that you're given by the king or the queen or the dictator or the tyrant or the public servant. It's not a gift from any other human being. It's a natural right that you have after you're raised by whatever parents raise you. You're not born free. And that's probably a good thing, because if you're left just to your own devices when you're born, you wouldn't last very long. So you're born to parents or guardians who hopefully care about you and love you. And for a while, they get to tell you that you can't do what you want and you have to do things that you really don't want to do. And that's just the way it is for a while. But as we grow and become mature, we get to a point where we're able to say to our parents or guardians, well, thank you. I appreciate what you tried to do for me. I don't necessarily share all of your values, and I'm going to now be my own free person and live my life my way. And that's the way it's supposed to be. That's the natural order of things. And once you've come to that point in your life where that conversation happens, and that's the reality of it, that you become your own individual, well, after that, nobody gets to tell you that you have to do things you don't want to do and you can't do what you want anymore. Everybody's going to tell you can't hurt other people, because that's a responsibility that we all have, as well as that natural right to be free is a responsibility to not hurt other people. And it goes beyond that. It goes that you can't let other people harm other people either, if there's anything that you can do about it. It's a natural responsibility that we have here. So we have these natural rights and responsibilities, but that doesn't mean that we have these natural rights and responsibilities, because we live in a world where there's people and groups that would like to take those rights and freedoms away from us, and we've been living with that for a very long time. For millennia, we've had these people and groups that put themselves above other people and become the kings and the overlords and those types of things. And it's not right, but it is what it is. And it's usually throughout history, it's been done with power and might and a forceful takeover of different populations. We've literally, as people, been kidnapped by these groups, usually financially superior to everybody else, and using that leverage to oppress people and to manipulate people and exploit people. And that's the reality of life on planet Earth for most of us. In just about any part of the world that we live in, is we've got these overlords that pretty much have kidnapped us, and we're slave to whatever demands that they put on us, and they enforce those demands with the use of force and threats and violence. And that's just what it's like to be a normal human being on planet Earth so far here. This isn't right. As I said, we have a natural right to not be oppressed and exploited by these people. But the natural right that we have is often overridden because of the force that these other people have, the financial leverage and the violence that they're willing to use against people. And so we've been fighting against this for a long time. And thanks to real superior efforts by many of our forefathers, we've managed to establish some forward ground against these overlords and what have you, to the point where we have what we call a free society and a democracy where we get to choose who's going to be the leaders. And this is a system that's been devised because of common law practices and evolutions along the way of us exercising and getting some of these rights that we deserve. But we are far from there yet. It's a long ways to go, in fact, because now we have an entrenched system here in these democracies where the people that get voted to be leaders actually end up in a 4-year rotating dictatorship, pretty much, where the only ones free in this country and others like this in the free world are the ones that are actually on the top. And the prime minister gets to pretty much do what he wants and make whatever rules and laws that he wants until he's ousted and another group of bandits gets in there to operate on behalf of that same group of people, the financial elite overlords of the past, which are now working in the background, funding campaigns, putting people into these leadership positions, and still getting their way with us. And the best and most obvious example of that is the attempt to prohibit cannabis and the other plants out there, to protect monopolies and to protect other substitute patentable, usually synthetic things that friends of government want to sell us, and these corporate elite are making a whole bunch of money on. So we're still trying to fight these people. We're still trying to get those rights back, and a big part of that, and my slant on it personally, is that I think that if we can overturn this attempt to prohibit cannabis, then a lot of the other dominoes will fall, and that could be a linchpin to getting us where we need to be. So we've been fighting that fight, and I've been a part of that for a couple of decades now, and the fight's been going on for a lot longer than that. And we made some serious headway as we have learned to be more sophisticated as activists in how we get our messages out there and how we educate the public. And in the court of public opinion, we've made some really good gains. And in the courts of law, we've made some good gains, because really there's no justification for the attempt to prohibit cannabis and even the other plant medicines that are being prohibited by governments in this so-called free country. They really don't have any proper justification for it at all, but it's quite a process to get the courts to rule in favor of freedom and rights. Shouldn't be, but it is, because it's a corrupt system that we live in, and it's just another example of how corrupt it is, what we have to do to go through the courts to get some reason and some justice, which is a very hard thing to do. We have forced the government's hand in these matters for the last quite a while, to the point where the Canadian public elected a government that ran on a platform of legalizing recreational cannabis for everybody. So not just medical cannabis, where we'd made such good gains in the court that medical users, if they could get permission from their doctor and a confirmation of diagnosis, could grow plants for themselves, or access through other people growing for them, or access through government providers, sketchy and suspect as they are. But at least we had made some strides with people's right to have cannabis for medical purposes, and to the point where we had unlicensed, self-regulated dispensaries all across Canada as well. But the government ran on legalizing cannabis for everybody and not just for medical purposes, and they got elected into a majority government based on that platform, which was unheard of or unthinkable 20 years ago. But sure enough, that's what happened, because we had been doing a good job of explaining the truth about what freedom really is and what the role of government should be, and the benefits and the value and the safety of cannabis. So they gave us legalization, except, fool us again. I mean, here we are in a so-called legalized and regulated system where it's not really legal for anybody except people licensed by the federal government to produce cannabis for anybody in Canada. So only Trudeau's growers get to grow for Canada, and only licensed dealers get to sell cannabis. And that means that all the people in the huge, vibrant underground industry that had been built up before that are not included in the new industry are all continue to be pursued as criminals with increased penalties and increased money for enforcement, which once again really exposes the corruption of the governments that we are under. The money that they're putting towards law enforcement, taxpayer dollars, is just obscene. The penalties that they're putting on people who would dare to deal or grow outside of the government system are also obscene. But these penalties are not reflective of damage done in our society, as common law would dictate. These penalties are directly designed to try to scare the shit out of people to make sure that they don't grow cannabis outside of the government system and don't sell cannabis outside of the government system. And that's just corrupt. I mean, a penalty should be around the damage that you do. And once again, a real departure from common law principles that got us to where we are. So putting profits over people and the corruption that's resulted in that is so obvious with respect to with the cannabis file, that it's a good way for us to recognize just how corrupt our governments are and what we need to be doing about that. We really need a reset of our democracy where we come together and come up with reasonable rules for our democratically elected public servants, some limitations on what sort of laws they can enact and enforce, some real transparency with how they do business so that they're not able to be lobbied behind closed doors with these, leaders of industry is what they call them, but they're really bribers and threateners on behalf of the corporate elite that want to get their interests protected. And they manage to do that because there's a real lack of transparency when it comes to how the government contracts are doled out and whose interests they're actually supporting. And there's also no accountability or very little accountability. Without a black and white paper trail of corruption, these public servants really get away with abusing their offices and abusing the Canadian public and instituting laws and protections for their corporate buddies that there's really no penalties for. All we can do is if we discover that, or we know what's going on, but the more able the opposition parties are to expose that, then maybe we vote them out next time, and that's the punishment that they get for abusing their office, and then we just get a new group of people in there to abuse that office. So it's been going on for too long. It's a system that we've all been born into and we pretty much accept, and we figure out how to live decent lives despite the fact that we're overtaxed and overgoverned and everything's overregulated and the government is to be feared and we can't trust our police and all these other things that are part of what's happened to this society of ours that really should be a great society if people's rights were respected properly and we had public servants that understood that their role was to make sure that every individual is treated as a sovereign being and able to do as they choose and not do what they don't choose to do unless they're harming other people, and that recognize that their role is to protect people from these corporate and financial elite people that would exploit and expose all of our weaknesses if they are able to. And that should be the role of government: limited, accountable, transparent public servants that recognize the sovereignty of the people that they're charged with protecting. And any violation of that should be a heinous crime and seen as being one of the most horrible things that you can do, because on that the scales of justice, where on one side you put the damage done and then a penalty to match it. Well, if you're a public servant, you're in a place where that signature on that piece of paper that you slide under glass and now use taxpayer dollars to enforce, if it's corrupt, if you're doing that to protect the private interests of other suppliers of things and you're not doing that in the public interests, well, the damage that you do, in the case of the cannabis file with millions of Canadians trying to operate with criminal records and the lives that have been ruined and all of the wasted tax dollars, well, the damage is immense and it's a heinous crime. And we need to understand that and recognize that so that we don't get public servants that would dare to do that. Instead, we get a different type of human being running to be public servants. Those that have a spine and a backbone and integrity and understand that there's great value in protecting weak and innocent people. And being a public servant means that you are a proud person who protects people from the corporate elite and doesn't let people be exploited the way that we have been here. So we need to change our democracy up and get more of that going on and have a real reset about the reasons that we have public servants and what their limits should be and how they should be accountable and transparent. So there's things that are happening that show these things. We live in a yin and yang universe where there's a lot of positives and a lot of negatives, and there's maybe a balance, but it's hard to find that. But anything powerful has both positive and negative. And in the world of cannabis news, there's positive and negative news. we have the FDA in the United States has now come out and cited 15 different companies that are selling CBD and demanding that they cease and desist in that activity. And they've come out with a statement not saying that CBD is dangerous or that there's any harms that's come from it in any way, despite the widespread use of CBD. It's in just about every grocery store down in California and throughout a lot of the states there. But they're saying that it's not proven to be safe. It hasn't gone through that rigorous testing, that the pathway to the marketplace is still a very complex and difficult thing to navigate, and CBD hasn't done that, although you would think that they would have done that by now. They've had plenty of time. But no, they're part of the corrupt state, and they're coming out and saying, whoa, hang on, this is not an approved product. People shouldn't be selling it. We're going to arrest people and hurt them bad that are selling it, and it's not proven to be safe. So use all these other pharmaceuticals and things that are proven to not be safe, but you can have all of those anyway. So there's that going on, and that's just an obvious example of more corruption. We had the head of the DEA come out and say that cannabis was dangerous and all the rest of it as well. So these people are very, very corrupt, and they're showing it every time they open their mouths. And I hope that all of us are seeing that and using it to fight them and to do what we can to undermine them, because these are the people that are making policy that are hurting so many of us. There was a meeting that happened last week here in Vancouver, put on by a group called Acres. Acres used to be CAMCD, and it was a very interesting meeting. CAMCD is a group that was born to try to present regulations to governments that would be accepted to allow medical dispensaries to stay open and to continue to function. They used pretty much the guideline of regulations put together by Riel Kapler and Philippe Lucas, and implemented these things with these dispensaries that would pay a fee to be a member, and then being a member gave them a status that was accepted here in Vancouver. When they started regulating dispensaries, that became one of the mandatory things for dispensaries to have, was a membership with CAMCD. CAMCD has now morphed and changed. It's gone away from its original mission, and they've now become Acres, the Association of Canadian Cannabis Retailers. And they put on a meeting the other night here in Vancouver where they invited the government store owners, the private owners of government stores, legal stores, to come and take part in a workshop where they would address some of the industry concerns, and that these industry representatives that came there would come up with solutions that they could then present to government to try to address the problems that they're having in the government stores. And we all know they're having a lot of problems. They're losing a lot of money. There's been a fair amount of corruption that's been found happening. All right, there we've got the 4:19 notice, so we're a minute away. In any case, they wanted solutions to these problems that they're having, and the problem is that they have a lack of customers because they have overpriced, overpackaged, overdried, undercured, corrupt weed. Don't forget the sprays they're putting on there that we don't think should be going on there. But in any case, you can't trust government weed, and they're not doing well in their sales, and they're being caught in a lot of corruption that's going on as well without any serious penalties to any of them. And so the Acres people want $1,500 a head from these businesses to be a voice for them, to help them unite and be able to speak to government about what sort of solutions. And I really don't think the solutions that they're going to present to government have anything to do with severely reducing the prices. It might be about reducing some packaging, but really what they should be doing is trying to get $3 grams of really good cannabis to everybody, and then they could take a good market share. And if that was safe, good cannabis, and they were ethical people, and they were lobbying for patients and people over profits, then they would do a wonderful business, and we'd all happily go there, and all of my friends that are growing right now could be part of that system, and people that want to sell would be able to easily sell. So that's what happened there. I wanted to talk a little bit about the symposium that I attended yesterday, and I will do that a little later on in the show. And we want to talk a little bit about the VIX being raided and what their response to that is, and we'll do that a little later on in the show as well. But right now it's 4:20, so let's get on that. And as always in studio, almost always, very thankful to have 8 out of 10 Glenn from CannaMatch.ca.
Hey,
how you doing, Glenn?
All right, how you doing?
Pretty good.
How's life?
Life is good. Hey, first thing off the top, I always introduce you as CannaMatch.ca, which is an excellent little project that you've got to put people in touch with each other that want to use cannabis in their friendly way.
Or whatever,
and your website is down, and that's why I wanted to mention it to just so people know that just for a couple days your website is down.
They're doing an update and installing a new SSL certificate, so it could be up to by the end of the night, but I'm going to say a couple of days just to be safe. So.
How long has it been down?
Just a day and a half. Not too bad.
Right.
So, but you always got to get an update so things start working right. And when we're dealing with money, you have to have that SSL certificate.
I see. That's what that's about.
That's encryption. Yeah, make sure that all the transactions are safe and people aren't going to get somebody else's information. So, very important to have.
Yeah, security would be good in a case like that for sure.
I don't like doing.
What are you smoking today?
Some El Jefe.
El Jefe?
Yes.
Oh, I haven't heard that for a little while.
Yeah, have you tried that?
Well, I did smoke it. I have smoked it, but...
Yes. Yeah, I had a little bit of that, so I brought that today.
Oh, yeah. Is that from High Guys? Or who's that?
No, that's not from High Guys.
How are the High Guys doing?
Pretty good. Had a bit of a problem. They let their domain name run out, and somebody bought it.
Oh, dear.
Yes.
They may have to reinvent themselves.
He's working at something else. Yeah. Maybe highguys.canada or something. I don't know.
We won't say that name anymore then, because somebody else has got that.
Yeah, I just found that out today when I asked him. It was like, oh no, really? And then today Ed texted me as I was coming. And I don't know if you have Bixby on your phone, but Bixby reads. Yeah,
I don't know what that is.
Samsung?
No, I have an LG.
You have an LG. Well, it reads your messages to you while you're driving, right?
Nice.
So it says, Neil, are you coming? And then you put a happy face, and it meant bright eyes and smiley face.
So that's why you wrote me back, I'm breathing hard, but I'm not quite there yet.
I was going, oh, Neil's in a really good mood today.
Gotta love the English language,
I know, but then I looked at it, it was just a symbol, but I guess it reads what the symbol is, right?
I see. So it said out loud, happy face, bright eyes?
Bright eyes and happy face, yeah. Bright eyes and smiley face, it said. I was like, oh, wow, he's in a great mood today.
It might have crossed my mind when I wrote that, the significance of, are you coming?
Yeah. I was like, I gotta say that on this show today. That was pretty good.
I love the English language. It's got, several words have several meanings, and, you can play on those pretty well. I don't know any other languages, so I'm not sure if it works the same with other languages, but the English language is a very creative language. You can do lots of fun things with that.
Yeah. And as to the stores you're talking about, why can't we have it like we have it now, like with our liquor stores? You have a beer and wine store, and you have a government store. Why can't we have government stores and the stores that we had before they started raiding them?
Well, the government stores would not be able to compete for one thing.
We can make our own beer and we can make our own wine. Why can't we grow our own weed?
Well, you can't sell your own beer and wine, basically.
No, you can't.
And I'm not sure why.
Yeah.
You
can gift it.
No, I mean, the reason why, if you look back, I mean, there was an attempt to prohibit alcohol that ended up in governments legalizing alcohol, but taking control of the alcohol distribution within the auspices of government, literally becoming, the organized criminals that they were trying to put out of business.
What they're trying to do now.
And, the United States was a country that is with lip service, supposed to be founded on freedom. We find these truths to be self-evident, that all people are created equal and endowed by the Creator with unalienable rights to the pursuit of their own life, liberty, and happiness.
I think we have more freedom in Canada than down there.
Well, both systems have become extremely corrupted, for sure.
Yes.
But, when they were prohibiting alcohol back in the States, that was the Rockefellers that were funding the women's temperance movement to go and lobby the government to prohibit alcohol because, people were beating up their kids and their wives, and this was the women's temperance movement slant on it. The Rockefellers wanted alcohol prohibited because they'd gotten themselves a monopoly on fossil fuels. And alcohol-based fuels was the big competitor to that. And so they wanted to outlaw alcohol so people couldn't use alcohol to drive their cars. And that was the real reason behind alcohol prohibition.
Wow.
And then after 13 years of that, there was illegal stills all over the place. Every little farm or everybody that had any property had a little illegal still going on. And most of that was being used to drive the farm vehicles and to operate the equipment. And so the Rockefellers were losing their monopoly. They had control of Congress. They now once again funded the temperance movement to go back and demand an end to alcohol prohibition to save the children, right? I got both joints going on now.
Well, yours went out, so I figured I'd pass you the lit one.
Yeah. I know. It's the 420 moment, but or session. 420 session. I should be more on the joint than the other things.
Yeah.
But, you know, the American people wouldn't have stood for not being able to have alcohol. Because that's a free country they got going on there. And there was a lot of lip service being paid to that.
Yeah.
So the possession of alcohol was never prohibited during alcohol prohibition. You were allowed to have alcohol. You were allowed to drink alcohol.
Yeah.
You just couldn't sell alcohol and move it between borders. Was
like a
the
bar
only thing.
or something like that.
Yeah, so they had speakeasies that popped up all over the place, you know, where all the politicians and
they
could all go.
Too, right?
Well, there was ongoing, you know, they had an enforcement unit. It all became very corrupt.
Or something, wasn't it? Or no?
Well, the prohees, they call them the prohees, and it all became very corrupt. It is all obviously very corrupt.
Oh, yes.
And a lot of people were making big money. People were still getting alcohol. The politicians were all being paid off. They had this new branch of being able to use taxpayer dollars to finance the prohees, to go around and bust up anybody that was, you know, and it was all so corrupt. And 13 years later, they ended it, but they didn't end it so much as, you know, okay, now everybody's free to sell alcohol.
Yeah.
You can sell alcohol, but it's coming from us, you know, our distributors. And everything that you get in a liquor store is all coming from the government.
Yeah.
Everything that's sold in cafes and bars, that's all coming from government. They all have to buy from the government source. And
it was... That's what they're trying to do now.
And that's what they're doing. They're trying to do exactly the same thing with cannabis.
Yeah. Do you think cannabis was alcohol was as set up as cannabis was when they started legalizing? Because we had like 2-3 decades of selling cannabis stores in Vancouver and stuff like that, and now they're pretty much gone.
There was some pretty established groups that were selling alcohol during those years of prohibition.
Yeah.
And many of them became then legal, suppliers of it.
Yeah, yeah.
And here, we had such a vibrant market that was going on here. I mean, you look at our 420 rallies, several hundred vendors.
Nobody was getting sick.
Everybody's branded nicely. They got good product and good packaging and all the rest of it. And all of those people are still illegal. You know, not part of the they didn't get brought into the new world. Some of the key players got bought out by different LPs to like they shut our main lawyer up by buying him out. They bought the one grower for the Vicks in Victoria there and a few others, and that's okay.
I heard about Beard Brothers too.
Beard Brothers is now also sold out to the LPs, and there's a lot of that going on. I hope they're just deep undercover guys.
Yeah, I hope they'll make it.
This symposium that I went to, let's check on the clock here, we're getting right out of time.
Sure.
But I went to a symposium put on at the UBC at Robson Square here yesterday. I was part of a panel that discussed things there. And it was orchestrated by Professor Malloy and the UBC Center for Substance Use. Yeah. Professor Malloy is a doctor that was given the position or won the position of being the cannabis professor in a professorship that was funded by Canopy Growth at LP, orchestrated mostly by Hillary Black, actually.
I'd like to meet that guy.
Well, he's not in any way following their agenda. He is not bound to them in any way, shape, or form. He's come on my program. He was on Jeremiah's program. He's studying the use of cannabis as a harm reduction tool and the use of opioids.
38 years of smoking. I want to be able to prove that I can drive.
Yeah,
I want to be.
All those things we need to prove.
If you can prove to me that I can't drive as well as I do, right? I would accept that. But
his focus is on the use of cannabis as a substitute for opioids or as to help in the opioid crisis. That's what the symposium was all about. He's released 33 papers in the year that he's been in that professorship. That's a lot of papers to be released. And I'll tell you, it was so positive. And I mean, if LPs are wanting to, cut out medical cannabis sales to people, they wouldn't have liked anything that was said at that symposium, I'll tell you.
Yeah.
I got to be there and bash against the corrupt, inflated price of cannabis and the lack of access to people and what legalization has done to the medical patients and all of that. And it was, good on them for having that. And I think that's how it has to go. I think that the LPs have to recognize that they need to support that vibrant industry that is still there and needs to be included. And the pricing needs to come way down. The packaging needs to get way more realistic. The warnings need to come off of it. And so maybe they're going to help to fight in that as well. But I recognize they're still also the enemy as they're, getting together and talking about, they've got a group that some of them have joined that are lobbying government to use more taxpayer dollars to enforce, and shut down more places. So it's a yin and yang universe. There's positive and negative both going on at the same time always. And that's just the way it is. So anyway, I think we did our session.
Yeah, we did.
That was awesome. CannaMatch.ca back up in a couple of days. And use it to, good way to use it to mingle and to get to know other people that, share your desires.
The world, you got to try to find somebody. They got 3,500 members on there. So.
There's not enough love in the world, Glenn. Good on you for helping spread the love. Thanks a lot. We'll see you next week.
See you next week.
Cool. All right. Slightly different frame of mind after the 420 session, and that's kind of the point. Next up is the Martin Medical Moment, and this is a segment on the show that we use to talk about the fight for medical cannabis access rights, mostly through the courts, because that's where this fight is at this point. It's on some other fronts as well, as we're going to find out a little later in the show about some of the other fronts that we're fighting for access as well. But the fight has been in the courts for a long, long time. We've won most of those battles, but in some ways you wouldn't know it. And especially with respect to medical dispensaries, you wouldn't know that we've won any of those battles. We had a case that was brought before Judge Phelan called the Allard case, in which Judge Phelan declared that cannabis dispensaries, the storefront dispensaries, are crucial and at the heart of access to medical patients. And yet, with the so-called legalization of the, by their own name, non-medical government stores, they're shutting down, and they have pretty much shut down the vast majority of the medical dispensaries right across Canada, and certainly here in Vancouver as well. And that is an absolute critical shame. That is an absolute disgrace and a slap in the face to the courts, who have ruled in favor of medical patients' right to access and having reasonable access. And one of those dispensaries that was operating in a small town in Saskatchewan was run by a fellow named Jerry Martin. And he had run his dispensary for about 4 years, illegal, of course. So all of the dispensaries were illegal. There was no licensed dispensary, and according to Health Canada and the federal government, it was a criminal offense to distribute cannabis. But the courts, as I said, had been showing favor. We won 15 cases in a row, all about access to medical cannabis. And that's why there was a proliferation of medical dispensaries to help people get access. And it had grown to the point where there was somewhere between 150 and 200 dispensaries in Vancouver, a number more in Ontario and Toronto. And Jerry Martin had his dispensary in Whitewood, Saskatchewan. And always constantly under the threat of loss of liberty and property by the authorities, but still, soldiering on and running these dispensaries in the face of that, because it was an important thing to give people access. And once you had started running a dispensary, for whatever reason you started to run it, be it the money that could be made or the people that needed access, pretty quickly you had patients that you cared about, people that were coming in and expressing how thankful they were for how you were helping them. And it became and becomes something that happens to people. I ran a dispensary myself in Vancouver. I ran the second dispensary after the Compassion Club back in 2004. We opened. And very quickly recognized the need for compassion and the need for access. And so after about 4 years of running his dispensary in Saskatchewan, Jerry got a letter from Health Canada asking him to shut down. And couldn't do that and decided not to do that. It was just another in an ongoing list of threats and risks that happens when you're a dispensary owner, always aware of what's going on, because you know that at any moment the cops could come in there. And this was just another in that. And the ability to stop helping people, especially in a small town that you've been doing for 4 years, is almost nil. I think it's almost an impossibility to be able to stop helping people and walk away from that because a corrupt government tells you to. And so Jerry kept his dispensary open, and sure enough, he was shut down, raided, had his property stolen, and now it's been over 3 years that he's been in and out of court trying to get a court date and not succeeding very well yet. And he's here, as always, to tell us about that and other things. So without any further ado, Mr. Martin, really good to see you, sir.
Good to see you.
Still in the same limbo? No new court date?
No, nothing.
So it's in the prosecutor's court, or ball is in his court at this point,
so.
to decide on a date, and you're just waiting for a decision on a date, at which point he'll call you back into court, and then that date will be set, and then maybe.
I'm assuming so.
Maybe.
I'm waiting on a trial date.
All right.
Yeah.
So that's where that is, and the wait.
Other people go LP.
And the wait continues.
That just blows my mind today.
Yeah.
Me every time. Gets me every time.
There's a lot to be upset about, for sure, and I don't think anybody can blame you for any of that. There's other court cases coming. We'll talk about that a little bit. Without new developments in your case, it's just a matter of updating how you're doing personally. You're surviving. You're still here. You're talking to me. Thank you.
Some weeks are harder than others.
Yeah, some days and moments.
Yeah,
and
other avenues are going good, though. So.
Where did I put this other thing for you? Oh yeah, you're back over here. If I get my papers straight, then I'm more organized. Fumbling along here. Are you familiar with these other cases that are going on?
A little bit.
There's one in Saskatchewan. I think Pat Warnicki has something going on there. I hope I'm saying his name right. He's got pre-trial in February.
Yeah,
I believe.
Apparently there's another case going on before mine.
Yeah, we don't know who that is, right? And do you think they have an actual date to
I don't
set?
know. Apparently there is something going on before my trial. So
Okay, well, if you find out what that is, I'd like to know what that is. There's another one going on in February as well. Sarah McNeil in Red Deer, Alberta. I don't know that they have a date set yet either. Just supposed to be in February. I haven't heard that there's a firm date on that. And but keep your eye open on that, because go out and support Heidi or Sarah in that courtroom.
Yeah, definitely.
Speaking of Heidi Chartrand has a firm date, December 20th. It's a constitutional challenge that's coming up, and I'm not sure exactly the location of that one either. So, but you can Google that and check that out, and support her as well. Chris N's got an adjournment to his in Halifax, whatever that means. We're not sure.
Chat is saying he's going to be back in court on the 3rd to the 5th of December. That just came out.
Chris N's?
Yeah, I can't confirm.
So, okay. Thanks, chat.
Good.
There's a chat up there. Oh man, I'm sorry, chatters. I have a hard enough time focusing on one thing or two things at a time. Smoking a joint and talking to my guests is about as much as I can do at once, and then I got to look at my notes and I get confused. If I have to look up there and start reading that, oh man. But I really do appreciate the people that contribute that way, and there is a chat going on. And maybe one day I'll figure out how to address that or something. I think Anil addresses some of that as we go in comments.
You have a little iPad right in front of your finger.
Oh, I know, but I'm not sure that would help me and be more of a distraction. I'm not good at this yet, I don't know if I'll ever get good at it.
Doing great,
Well, no. I have a message that I feel is important to convey, and I have enough skill to be able to convey it that I have to give it a shot. And I'm really, really happy that I have the opportunity to do that, because like you, I find there's a lot to be upset about, and I get really frustrated and angry too about some of the things that happen here as I see the different news reports coming in of the CSU busting other places. They busted the Vancouver or the Victoria Buyers Club.
Right, yeah. They reopened the same day, or or the next day or
right away afterwards.
Yeah.
I talked to Ted today, and they're still helping their patients. They got 7,700 members there, and yet our government, these public servants, think that it's okay to just come and stop access to 7,700 members of the public. Like,
it's ridiculous.
It really pisses me off so bad. It's I find it very hard to deal, and that's why I'm really thankful that I get to have this show, and the other outlets that I've had. The CSP is another one that gives me something to do, because if I didn't have something to do about how stupid our system is and how they're hurting people, and especially with the cannabis file, then I think I'd go a little crazier than I already am, and I don't think that'd be a good thing.
I appreciate coming out every week.
It's an outlet, isn't it?
It
It is.
is.
It gets a little bit of it off your chest, because it really it's so infuriating. When I heard that they busted and raided the club, they didn't bust it. They don't bust us usually.
Yeah.
They busted you, damn it, eventually. But you're in a small town, very vulnerable.
Well, they overbusted me.
Yeah, they overbusted you. And they're trying to overbust everybody now.
Special. Yeah, now
they put concrete blocks up in front of the one place that wouldn't stop reopening, and
I do get a kick out of these guys.
oh my God, it's so infuriating.
What did they do last time? What did they have? I don't know. They did something, a maze or something at Halloween.
Corn maze.
Yeah.
Gotta give them credit.
Well, we're not going away.
Yeah.
We're not going away. We're just getting more and more pissed off and figuring out more and more creative ways. But we shouldn't be having to do this at all.
Yeah.
This is really infuriating. And so the Victoria Buyers Club with Ted Smith, they had a little bit of a protest outside of the NDP convention last Saturday, I understand.
Yeah, Cindy was there. Yeah, Cindy's birthday, by the way. Happy birthday, Cindy.
Yeah, happy birthday, Cindy Heimlich. She was our guest for the 420 session when Glenn was missing one of the 2 weeks that he was gone. Cindy's an awesome activist. She's Dana Larson's right-hand girl, and does a fine job of making sure that the events happen as they should. And she's just about everywhere all the time, too busy, like a lot of activists are, because you just can't stop. It drives us nuts what's going on here. You wake up in the morning, and for me personally, I don't think I've ever been any less pissed off than any other day since I got that epiphany in my life 15 years ago, where I cried my eyes out. I just realized how horrible this is. The people's lives that are being ruined. They're starving people to death with cannabis prohibition.
I did the first night I knew I was going to get into this business too. I didn't sleep a wink.
Yeah. It really hit me hard when I really got it, that these so-called public servants that we pay to be friends of ours to help us with things are taking that money, using it to protect a bunch of greedy assholes. That in my case, what really hit me was they're prohibiting the growing of cannabis around the world and in places where people are starving to death.
They're here to control
And
us,
cannabis
to
is
help us.
food. Cannabis is such amazing food. It grows so well. It adapts so easy. It produces all of these seeds. Those seeds have everything the human body requires in like a glove on a hand. It's just incredible. They say that Buddha lived for 6 years eating one hemp seed a day. You know how myths go, right? You pass it on. Pretty soon it's one hemp seed.
That's a good one.
Yeah, it's only one seed every day now.
I've heard the yogi,
Yeah,
that's
maybe in another 100
fine.
years it'll be one seed every month. But I'm sure it was a handful of seeds. But he did go. You look at the images and the idols of Buddha, and he did go from being this big, fat, heavy guy to Slim Jim, and I'm sure that's probably a part of that the cannabis played a big role in that, because it is such healthy food. It literally has everything that the human body requires: the vitamins, the proteins, the nutrients, the fiber, the essential fatty acids, all of that. And so when I learned that was my moment of epiphany. I already knew it was wrong. I'd already been helping out at the pot rallies for about 5 years. Still didn't get, why it was really prohibited, how much harm was being done, how valuable it really was. I didn't get all of that until I started renovating that space that became the Herb School and reading The Emperor Wears No Clothes And by chapter 7, when it started talking about hemp seed nutrition, I was already really pissed off because I'd learned about all these other applications for cannabis and you know, why it shouldn't be prohibited with the criminal law. And now it's food. That was too much. That set me. I mean, I was susceptible. I was vulnerable because I'd been to a Greenpeace thing 3 weeks before that where some ladies in a booth were talking about world starvation. And so I was having a real hard time wrapping my brain around people dying of starvation and kids. That was the thing that was really getting me, was kids that die of starvation, because what's that like? Like, you know, nobody cares about you enough to even give you a little bit of food, for fuck's sakes, in a world where we got all this abundance. Like, holy shit. And the USDEA, on behalf of all of us, is prohibiting the growth of this plant that could feed these people. Well, that was too much. That was it. I was over the top. I started bawling my eyes out. I sat there and just cried my eyes out. And I thought, these greedy fucking bastards are willing to prohibit food from people and starve them to death to protect their money interests. And I can't do anything but try to stop that for the rest of my life. And that's what happened to me. And like I said, I never wake up a day less angry than I was that day. Every day I got people telling me how their lives were ruined because of cannabis prohibition. And every day I read more news stories about, you know, how governments are lying about, you know, harming the developing brain. And we got to worry about impaired driving and it's dangerous. And, you know, and alcohol is, you know, freely available everywhere, all over the place. You know, so yeah, I'm driven by that. I don't live an angry life because that's no way to live, you know, and I try to channel it into things, and that's my whole point. And that's what we were talking about. I mean, you got to do something.
Yeah, I hear the NDP made a motion.
Well, it's a motion more about lobbying the federal government
Yeah.
to allow for a safer supply.
Yeah. And
Sure it is.
Criminalize drugs. Yeah.
But shame on the NDP government here in BC for having the stupid CSU shutdown
I don't
force.
trust any of them.
I don't either. I mean, John Horgan told me personally before he was premier here that if he became premier, he was just months away from, you know, potentially becoming premier, and he did. He told me personally, looked me right in the eye, and said that he would lead the charge for medical cannabis rights. And what the fuck?
Like
He's
Trudeau
shutting
on
down
videos
medical
saying
dispensaries all over the place. I mean, shame on John Horgan and the provincial government here. Shame on all of them for a long time. Criminals, criminal puppets. Yes, they are. But just like we learned in Nuremberg, you know, just because you're a puppet and other people told you to do something doesn't mean you get to go ahead and do it and get away with it, you know. And you people are going to be major criminals in the future here. The people that were involved with the cannabis prohibition that prevented medical people or people with medical needs from solving those issues, major criminals. Major criminals. Yep. So, you know, it's not going to be fun to be them or families of them in the decades to come, because we're going to win this, and the truth is going to come out about all this. They're not going to get away with the lies that they're telling. The symposium yesterday was wonderful. My goodness, wonderful. Bunch of people with DRs in front of their name that really got it, that really understand. Cannabis edibles work for people on opioids, and cannabis prohibition is very, very harmful. They get it. So, you know, it's not over yet. We got a lot of fighting to do to get there, but we're getting there, and we're going to win, because that's the truth. And eventually, the truth will win out here. And they're going to be seen as major criminals. Major criminals. Well, we went over time a little bit again, but that's good, because I love talking to you, Jerry. And
good talk. Update on that there, too.
Yes, please.
We're switching the formula of this to
hold it still. When you hold it up the camera, hold it still.
We're switching the formula of this from
Right.
the 1P to the FLAD. So it's virtually indistinguishable from real LSD.
Right.
And I'm working with the Delos Psych Research Group out of San Francisco.
Right.
And we'll know this week if the Beckley Foundation has agreed to help do a study in Canada. So
A lot of movement
Yeah.
with respect to psychedelics and the
Yeah.
understanding that they're able to help people. So,
yeah, it's important.
yeah, good on you for having that. How can people...
You can check out microdelics.ca.
all right.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Very good. Well, we'll see you next week.
Perfect. Thanks.
Very good. All right. Jerry is fighting the good fight there. It's not easy, but I really am thankful that he's there doing that, because that's a battle that needs to be fought. And fighting for the rights to have medical cannabis dispensaries is a fight that's on behalf of a lot of very sick and suffering Canadians and other people that really need to have storefront access, in a world where you can find pretty much most days and most hours of most days alcohol for sale easily, and 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, you can walk into drugstores and get all kinds of drugs that, if not used properly, can be very dangerous. And yet we've got our government saying that this natural healing herb, one of the safest in nature, according to DEA Judge Francis Young in 1987, cannabis is the safest therapeutically active compound known to man. And yet our government's trying to prop up prohibition prices and make fortunes for insiders are lying about cannabis to this day, and scaring people about cannabis, and trying to block and prevent access in any reasonable way. Like I say, in a world where you can buy cigarettes in every grocery store and gas station right across Canada, and alcohol is freely available, and drugs in drugstores that are far more problematic than cannabis ever could be. So the corruption runs deep, and it runs to the top. And this fight is not over for the rights of us and other good people, and we're here to help do that. And I'm very, very pleased to have with me as my guest today one of the people at the forefront of that fight, and one of the main battlegrounds where they've been running a medical dispensary for a number of years with great support from the community and the local government, and living in fear of the community safety unit, very improperly named group of law enforcement, the most despicable group of law enforcement people I have ever encountered in my life. They certainly rival the Nazis, and perhaps worse than that, because the people that they're hurting are completely defenseless and in serious need, and they're being blocked and shut down by this enforcement group. So without too much further ado, I'm going to let him speak for himself a little bit and find out how he got to be where he is. The Candyman, Mr. Doug Sikora. Thank you so much for coming and visiting me in studio here today, sir.
Oh, it's good to be here.
I know you have some concerns.
You for a while. Good to see you.
Yeah, well, you're on the island, a little bit removed. So.
Yeah, on the Sunshine Coast.
Yeah, and tell me a little bit about yourself. So, where were you born, raised, and what was your first encounter with cannabis and other drugs?
Oh, born and bred in Vancouver. First cannabis use, oh geez, I would have been when I was a teenager, like 13. I would have been.
What area of Vancouver?
North Delta. My father had a shop in Vancouver, so I was born and raised around Vancouver. East Hastings, he had an electronics shop, so
right.
Always up and down Vancouver, and also in North Delta.
I see. Do you remember your first cannabis experience, how that happened?
Funny you say that. Yeah, I sure do. A little bit of Colombian Gold, smoking a little Colombian Gold.
With some friends?
Actually, it was a friend of a friend that I had met. That was actually my first introduction was about a half pound of Colombian Gold.
Not all at once.
Yes. It was all at once.
Wow.
So it was kind of try this, had a look at it, and I went, kind of loved it.
Did you get high?
I tried a little bit. Yeah, it was fun.
Wow. And I believe you progressed on to harder drugs. Is that correct?
Over my years, yes. Construction was always my whole forte. 30 plus years. Couple injuries,
Right.
Blind in one eye. I've got 6 pieces of plastic in my back now, amongst other injuries I've taken over the years. And through those years was always on opiates.
Right.
Doctors prescribed me more and more, to a point where the last 5 years of when I did take prescription drugs was 5 years of Oxycontins.
Right.
Fast and short release until I realized what Oxycontin was.
Great.
And then basically I went cold turkey and quit.
I see. Did cannabis play a role in your quitting?
Yeah, that was how I quit, actually.
Right.
Actually, went cold turkey and ended up putting myself in the hospital for 3 days.
Right.
One of the roughest parts of my life, suicidal area kind of deal.
Mm-hmm.
Don't want to ever see somebody like that. That's prescription drugs, and trying to get off of them after you've been on them for my journey with those was 25 plus years straight.
So cannabis was your means off of that. Is that what sparked you to become such the advocate that you are and open the shop and all of that?
Yeah, it's basically the whole start of it. It saved my life.
Right.
Seriously. We went from, I haven't had a prescription pill now in 6.5, getting close to 7 years now, I believe.
Right.
Basically, it started out by making the candy. That's how I stopped.
Now, this is in Gibson's now?
Yes.
And then at some point you decided to open the dispensary.
Well, it's kind of funny because, well, it's not really funny, but we have an anniversary coming up of 4 years ago, actually, when we started our store at our house.
Nice.
We started helping people same way I helped myself.
Right.
But we had to run it out of our house, because at that time we were trying to work with our local government, which was Seashelt, and basically got strung along basically and told to always step back and be patient with them. Our local government in that area didn't really want to put forward the step like the town of Gibson's did for us.
So you had a dispensary you were running out of your house?
Yes.
And you were making edibles?
Well, it wasn't really a dispensary. It was where
you help people?
Yeah, well, where people come and we'd help people.
Were you making candies at that point?
Yes.
And
yes, that's the whole start of the company is when
so
I made the
and you were making candies because you were using them yourself. Is that the thing?
Yeah, that's correct.
And so because you were making candies for yourself and it was
then
working and other people,
and
then they want, and pretty soon you're making more candies and more candies, and
then we got raided
at the house.
Yes.
Oh.
Actually, it's kind of wild because this Thursday would be our 4-year anniversary of that raid.
I see.
It was set up by a ex-neighbor that used to live beside us that moved in, which was a fired Edmonton police officer with criminal record, we found out.
Right.
And he had a grudge out against me and my wife, and we went through hell for 2.5 years.
I see. So because of him, you got raided there.
Yes.
By local
RCMP.
Local RCMP.
Undercover, lied to us, said they were medical, using it for medical, wanted to hide it from their wife, etc.
So that you learned your lesson.
Oh, yes.
That was it. You weren't gonna have anything to do with cannabis ever again.
No. No, actually, that night I had baked. I think that was the night the news put me on. Global came up, and that night I was so mad that I had gone straight down into the kitchen and baked 500 doses of chocolate, and they had that on picture of the news with that.
I see. So our tax dollars were not successful that night in deterring you.
It's even more ironic that the day we got raided was the same day the local RCMP Christmas party was. It was kind of ironic how that.
Oh, they were like, they needed some weed for their party.
Well, made their party.
Hey, I know where we can get some good edibles. And yeah.
Speaking of edibles,
and then of course they destroyed the evidence.
You guys little gift bags, of course.
Gift bags are always fun.
From the candy store. Always got to bring you guys a little treat. We are up to about 273 in the store now.
Oh my goodness.
I know.
Yeah, because I was getting to that. How long after the raid did you end up with a store then? Is there more in the evolution before that?
The store actually stayed. Well, it wasn't really a store; it was our house. Friends came to.
Right. Well, you have a store now, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So at some point you got a store.
It continued, and we were working again still with Seashell at that time, and that's when we moved to Gibson's to start working with Gibson's because there was another store that was open, and so we went and applied for a business license, and it actually, I'll remember that day to the day I die, because we walked in there and the town of Gibson's opened their arms to me and my wife that I was speechless. They basically asked us that because we were going in early, because if you went in before the end of the year, you got 10% off your business license. So we said, okay, and when we signed up, so we got saved 10% because we were signing up early, and we actually got our business license through the town of Gibson's. It'll be 3 years now.
Nice.
But it wasn't with the TUP of the nowadays you have to have, but they gave us our business license, and we had it honored for a couple of years there.
So you got a storefront and opened a store. How many flavors did you have going on at that time?
Well, at that time, we probably only had about 160. I'm going to guess.
160
roughly.
different candies.
I get motivated every
Just hang on
time.
to
Every
that for a
time.
minute.
I just, you know.
Uh-oh. I'll get that. Oh, did you? Oh, yeah, there it is.
There we go. I got another one here.
So what do we got here?
Oh, I brought a couple things. I
Oh, he
brought
puts
some
me on the
fresh
split screen. I
gummies.
remember that. So we got these candies here. Oh, yeah.
The gummies, this is our new mold because we've spent some money. We actually customize our bigger size molds. Our bigger size molds actually say S&M on the top of them. That just so it identifies that gummy is from us. Plus we've gotten rid of our other molds. We've actually gone to our single molds, where our small pot leaves. So we're trying to identify, so nobody can say we're trying to attract the wrong clientele.
How much is in these ones?
Well, we don't do milligrams. We basically go by dose in our store. Dose? So a dose like that would be like you smoked half a joint to yourself. You eat that whole thing. And it's going to,
So that would probably be 15 milligrams or something like that.
Well, roughly 20, 25 in that area,
20, 25?
Depending on your percentage of...
So it's a good joint. You smoke half a good joint.
You're smoking always good stuff. It's always organically grown, too.
And how many flavors you got now?
Well, as of Monday, last week, I think was my latest. It's a hot cinnamon strawberry gummy, just like the cinnamon hearts you get at Valentine's Day.
Right.
But a gummy form. It's number 273 on our menu now.
I see. You're kind of like the ice cream shop we got here. Just winning the Guinness Book of World Records. They got 270 some flavors of ice cream.
Yeah. Every time somebody comes up with an idea, my wife tells them to shut up, but it gets in my head, and then it.
Then you can't sleep at night.
It don't leave. Once it gets in there, and then it creates.
Most of your creations happen in the early morning hours, apparently.
Yes, they do. Yeah. Usually when I can't sleep, and 4:00 in the morning, I'm whipping something up. The wife sometimes doesn't matter when I'm waking her up in the morning and she's getting a spoonful of warm chocolate that I made some new creations. It's not bad.
Right.
Sitting in bed getting a warm spoonful of hot new chocolate.
So 3 years now you've had the store.
Yeah, we're up 3 years now.
Now, do you use a strict medical model?
Yes, we are.
So you need people that are over 19 that have a doctor's confirmation of diagnosis.
Under 19, yes, actually, we do have youth clients, but they have also got parent signature with doctors, also full credibility. We have probably, I'm going to guess now, upwards about a dozen youth that we're helping out with different items.
I'm going to take a minute here to do a little mini rant. What happens sometimes. The whole idea of cannabis damaging the developing brain is nothing but a scare tactic and a myth that's been perpetrated by a very corrupt medical association that wants to protect the interests of their pharmaceutical benefactors. And there's no evidence to support any of that. In fact, it's a hate crime, in my opinion, that to say that extensive cannabis use in youth damages the developing brain says that there are millions of Canadians who would have brain damage right now. And it's not true. In fact, some of the highest performing people in our society used cannabis extensively in their youth.
I know a lot of high society people have owned companies. Like this myth of the government has put into heads is ridiculous.
It is.
It's another scare tactic. It's just like what the government has done in 1 year and wiped out stores like us. And the people that are still fighting.
And this is the basis on which they're doing such things, is the reefer madness that they're perpetuating with this. And this is one arm of it. They have very few arms. They have no legs. They have a few arms. This is one of their arms.
They have power.
And it's a horrible thing that they're saying, and it's all just bullshit.
No.
Not that I'm advocating for extensive cannabis use amongst our youth.
No.
But it's an individual thing, and it's up to families and how they want to treat things. It's no place for government in that respect with how families deal with such things. And certainly no place for law enforcement. And they do way more harm than they do good.
They should be fighting other things.
Well, for sure. We just need to educate our young people, and we need to have them make good choices. And moderation is kind of the key to everything.
That's right.
Moderation, even in moderation, is the one thing that I came to understand as well. But they do way more harm than good by criminalizing these things and by trying to prohibit them and lying to people. Young people are not stupid.
That's a little 24 karat.
I mean, how many young people have been, brought up to be afraid of cannabis, And then finally one day they find themselves with their friends and it's going around the circle and they're going to try it and they try it. And then they think to themselves, what the hell was all that about? You know, why did they say all these lies about this? I know Jodie Emery was saying she was a real anti-pot person in high school.
So myself, I wasn't. That's the thing. I think that, you know, the way they're doing it, again, if kid wants to get their hands on it, they're going to get their hands on it.
And they're more likely to want to get their hands on it if you tell them that they shouldn't.
That's exactly it.
And with Jodie, she says that, you know, she believed all the hype about it. She was an anti-pot person, and why would anybody just, you know, ruin their mind or whatever with that? But then she saw her friends that were using it, and they were still scoring good on the tests in school, and they were still good people, and so that had a lot with that too. It's all bullshit.
Yeah, I know.
And,
sad.
I know.
It's sad.
It's very sad.
And it's just like the whole CSU thing that we've been, that's been a big stress on us.
So you're a medical cannabis dispensary.
Yep.
You've been doing it by the book as best you could medically for all this time.
To the
You've
T.
got how many members?
We've got now, well, we used to, because with our farm, before the whole exactly getting it down to where now we have to have the prescription in, a doctor's, lawyer, notary, some kind of form that you can prove that you're using it medically. We have to get it registered with us as a member.
You're not making it easy for people.
No, because this is the way it's forth the law. Now this
in order to continue to operate.
We're worried about them coming into our store, taking all product out of the store. I can set up the goddamn table in front of my store, and as a medical patient, I can gift it to anybody 19 years older that I think needs my medicine that I make. So now that's pretty ironic that I can sit outside the store, hand it out for free. They can't do a damn thing about it, but they can walk into the store and take everything and say I'm doing that illegally.
Yeah.
But yet I want to pay taxes, employ people, and do everything the right ways, of which me and my wife have spent over years getting to the point where we have the piece of paper on the wall required to operate a store, and now I still have to worry that they might come in and still do this to us.
And certainly you have the support of your community. And so how many members do you think you have then?
On our community, probably we're looking at over 500 now.
So 500 people in your community support what you're doing.
Yeah.
And access through you. And you're worried about being shut down in an effort to protect the government stores. Do you have government stores where you are?
Yeah, we have one. One so far. This is our.
Are there other medical stores where you are?
They all were medical, but they all went.
They're all trying to go.
Right.
And now one of them has succeeded.
One shut down. There's 3 in Gibson's. There was 3 in Seashell. The Gibson's one down below us on waterfront. They have got their rec license. So there is 1 rec license store by the town of Gibson's. And 1 medical TUP store by the town of Gibson's.
Same people that were operating the medical store are now running the government store?
Yes, they are. Yes, they are.
Do you know those people? Are you friends with them?
Know them. You know, they're a family, young couple. They're trying to do the right thing. They thought that's the way they had to go to do it. I don't, you know, I hope they can make it. I don't foresee them making that. But I wish all the best to them, because I don't want to wish somebody ruining a business. But
do you think they feel the same? Has there been any advocacy on their part to have you shut down?
No, I don't think they on their advocacy. It's locally, we're very, very well accepted in our community. We try to help out constantly with our food bank and different things we can.
Have you had the CSU in?
We had them back in June. So
they
June,
came in June
around and they hit all 6 stores on the Sunshine Coast, or Seashell and Gibson. So that's what we were all told to shut down till you get your TUP recreational permit.
They told you to do that.
That's what they said to us.
Right.
I was not there at the time, unfortunately. My employee was at the time. But basically they had told them that we were operating illegally. Even though we had pointed out that we did have a business license from the town of Gibson's and we were waiting for medical TUP they were issuing us. The constable, which we don't know exactly who this is because they don't identify themselves as RCMP, whatever they are, they're CSU. Okay, so the province has hired some bullies to go around, do a job hired by the government, the province, so you can't really blame those guys because the government just said, go do this. You're getting paid to do this.
Oh, I blame them.
Well, we all do. I know that. But I'm just saying,
I hope their families
I want to know the name that hired them to do it.
Oh, for sure.
That's the name. That's the name.
But they should stop doing their job too. I hope their families are giving them a hard time.
Well, exactly. You know what? They're taking away from people who's sick.
Yeah.
That's the
They're
thing.
not helping
That's the
anybody
gra-
but people that don't deserve help.
This is the ground that I'm saying is that we have these pieces of paper from our local law enforcement government, town of Gibson's. We're going to issue this because the next day, the town of Gibson's came and told us to pick those pieces of paper up. So me and my wife went down to pick up after those CSU had come through our town. We went down the next day after that and picked up a PFU and the business license from town of Gibson's.
Do you have any information as to whether or not the CSU consulted with the city at all about coming in and talking to you or being in that town?
No.
Knowing that you don't have any information, or no, they didn't say?
We don't have any information.
Okay, so they may or may not have said something to the city council.
Well, the way it went down in Squamish, I highly doubt that they.
Yeah, I highly doubt it too. It doesn't look like they're consulting with city councils at all.
No.
That they're just coming in and doing it. That they are probably alerting law enforcement because, you'd probably have to do that.
They also just announced in Seychelles 4 licenses. I can't believe there's 4 stores actually going to go in the little town of Seychelles. But there's actually 4 stores that got the okay.
Rec stores. Government rec stores.
3 of them were old medical stores. Now they have gone rec.
You're the only medical store left on Sunshine Coast.
Yes. They have all gone applied for that. Seychelles has given okay to go, I guess, to the next step. And there's also been a government BC store coming to Bandlands up there. They have rented a spot on a new part of the mall they're building on the band. So not only do we get 4 licenses in the little town of Seychelles, but the big boys are coming into town and putting in a big store at the new part of the mall they're building.
I see. Have you considered a petition?
Well, yes, we have.
You have a petition going on?
Oh yes, we have one already.
Is it online?
It's at our store. You can go basically. For all coasters, can go and send a letter to Nicholas Simons. Nicholas Simons is our local MLA.
Right.
He backs our store, and he's asked us to get our clients to sign letters or sign a pre-made one we have at the store, dated,
Cool.
signed, add your email, phone number if you want, and he's going to get those in his hands and take those to Mike Farnsworth on our behalf, hopefully, and help us try to keep the store open.
Yeah, which reminds me of the Vancouver or the Victoria Cannabis Buyers Club that was raided. They had a protest at the NDP convention this past Saturday.
Yes.
This coming Saturday, they're going to be at John Horgan's office.
That's right. I believe I'm going to try
Glendale, is that where that is?
Be down there. One of us will try to be down there because one of us has to be at the store because that's
Langdale. That's where that is. It's in Langdale. And then the following Saturday, December 7th, they're going to be here in Coquitlam at Farnsworth office as well.
I think that's the one that.
And we'll join them for that as well. So
We'd like to come out, and one of us will be up. More likely to. One of us is always going to be at the store with what's going on because stress levels are pretty high,
That's too bad. I have the CSU to blame for not having Michelle here with you because I wanted to have both of you, as you know.
Yeah, Michelle would love
you
to be
guys
here.
are such a lovely couple, and I was
sad,
really,
but we, we're going to keep fighting this thing. I think a lot of people need to start standing up more, though. Not only the people like ourselves that are still here fighting for the fight, but get your clients, get your patients, get those people to start writing those letters to your local MLAs. They gotta. That's going to be your voice to take it further to where we got to go. I don't see locally, especially for BC. I've heard different stories across the rest of Canada, man. Like, wow, I feel sorry for other provinces. Like, it's, wow, BC, we're pretty lucky here. I'll tell you a comparison. There's a lot of, wow, different laws in different provinces.
well, and different availability. There's more people growing here for sure.
Yes.
And we need to have more people growing. We need to continue to overgrow the government. That's the strategy that got us.
But we tell all our clients, grow 4 your plants, grow your own medicine.
No, I say grow more than that.
Keep
you
going.
can have 4 plants in flower. So you can have 20 plants that aren't quite in flower yet. You can veg them as big as you want, flower them when you like. And that's legal. And I'm still not in favor of that. I still think people should grow as much as they want. I'm not advocating, I'm not recommending people do things that are going to put their families at risk.
No.
Because that's an individual choice. But for those that can, I think we should all just
You
try to
make your own
overthrow this
medicine. You should
government.
be able to make whatever you want. I mean,
And hell, why not? I mean, you can
mean-
grow your own tomatoes,
exactly.
and you can save yourself.
Wow.
Well, they're what, $4 or $5 a pound.
Yes.
So you can grow yourself 10 pounds of tomatoes. It'll last you through most of the year, and save yourself $40 or $50. Or you could grow some weed.
Well,
And what's a pound of weed worth these
now,
days,
if
you know?
If you come to our yard, let's see. We have 65 types. No, we're up. Actually, I forgot. I just planted 2 new trees last spring. So we would be up to 73 types of fruit that we grow in our yard.
I see.
Different multitude,
I thought you were referring to the cannabis plant as a tree.
No, hold
I
on,
think people should.
We're getting to that. We got that going on too. But we have 73 types of fruit that we got. We have about 6 nut trees now that we've got planted in our yards. 12 types of mint that grow around the bottoms of each base of the fruit trees. And then we go into the grow ups that we have.
And you can buy all that stuff at a store if you want. The stuff that you're growing there.
Yeah.
You can buy all of it.
Yeah.
You can buy all of it for less than $10 a pound.
Yeah. Yeah. And then we put it in the freezer and use it in the edibles that we make too.
But you grow some cannabis plants.
Yeah, that's also in that.
And if you were having to buy your cannabis, like if you were having to go and buy your cannabis, even on the underground where you're going to pay $5 or $6 a gram and up from there, to the government stores where you're going to pay. Well, they said at the Symposium yesterday $8 a gram. I'm not sure what you can buy at the government store for $8 a gram.
Well, it's probably powder.
But anything they got that's any decent at all is well over $12 a gram.
And even that.
You know, and at those prices, that means that pound of cannabis, I mean, at $12 a gram, that's $5,000 a pound at $12 a gram. So it's very profitable to grow cannabis.
Yeah, especially when you can grow it in multi square foot products.
Yeah,
you grow
at those prices.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
You can just see why there's all these corporations that want to jump into that business. Like, you can see why the valuation of those companies are millions and hundreds of millions, and there's billions of dollars being invested here. And the reason is because they think they can get $5,000 a pound for something that you can grow pretty much as easily as you can grow those other fruits and nuts and vegetables you're growing.
I know.
It's crazy that one plant is worth so much more.
I know.
No wonder it's being traded on the stock markets.
Tobacco is legal to grow till how long ago?
Oh, and you can grow how much? You can grow pounds and pounds of tobacco for yourself.
Yeah, but it was illegal to grow tobacco, and it wasn't too long ago that now but try to find a tobacco plant or a tobacco seed. It's very interesting. I looked this up. It's very interesting.
It's hard to get seeds, eh?
Anything like that. They don't have it in the garden starts, and it's kind of weird how they still have it, but nobody really looks into it. So a smoker, because I'm kind of interested in doing that, because I should got to quit smoking, but and grow my own tobacco, again.
Well, and what other adult there in the world should be telling you that you can't? Is my question.
Yeah, I know.
Like who gets to tell other adults that they can't grow certain plants? Who are these people?
Corporate.
And how is that right? What's
just
their motive on that?
Another thing I'd like people to start looking into is the packaging, okay, with this, okay? I want to know who's associated to somebody in the government that got this contract to get this packaging, that for every LP has to package this stuff like this, and there's somebody's packaging that is associated to somebody in government that just became multi-billionaire company.
Yeah.
But nobody really thinks about this packaging, because I looked at this and I go, this is ridiculous, because we had one somebody brought into our store, and it was for a gram, and it was like,
I've seen it. I know what you mean.
Was a sound.
I've seen it laying around in the street out there outside of government dispensaries. Actually,
they have that false bottom in the middle of it, which makes the gram bigger. I thought it was hilarious.
They say they need it to be that big so they can put all the warnings on it.
So the person that bought it gave it to us, and they took their gram. So we were playing with it, and then about the 12th time we played with it, that little unsealable, it doesn't let go anymore. Your container now becomes permanently sealed.
Really?
So if you happen to use that for your black market weed,
maybe you did that on purpose, eh?
Well, it was kind of weird because we were all tried it a couple times.
Well, they declare that it's single use. You can't recycle it. It's single use plastics, and the reason is because it's contained narcotics.
So
you believe it?
I guess the government should come up with a proper disposal of that, shouldn't they? No, you know what? Yeah, even our little plastic bags that we have for stores. Yeah, we're looking like we have to get away from this. So, have a plastic container, people. But you know how many plastic containers people would be buying all the time? Because, bring in your container, try to get people on that. We'll fill it up for, amount of
They
weed.
just end up with a box full of containers at home.
Well, that's what would happen.
That's what typically would happen.
It's kind of, yeah. So you got to figure out the best method, and it's a hard one.
Put it in the palm of their hand.
Well,
there you go. There's a handful of weed for you.
If you're a cigarette smoker, open up your pack of smokes.
You got a bag with you? Oh, you didn't bring a bag? Well, next time bring a bag.
Well,
because we're not giving you a bag.
We have clients that bring back stuff, and we appreciate it.
Yeah, it should be that way.
We have a recycling pile for plastic and blah blah blah. We do our recycling best we can.
What you got to do is you got to raise the price of your product that you're going to put in the jar by about 10%, and then charge them about 5% more. Give them a 5% discount
if they bring
so that you make 5% when they do that. I mean, I'm being a little bit silly because you don't want to make money on your customer like that.
No,
but there are ways to give them incentives to bring back their own container.
That's right.
And some people would do that, and I guess some people are better than no people.
Well, a good example is when the whole legalization was going through, a lot of people couldn't understand, why we were sticking our guns. And how it was versus medical. And we basically had to explain to people, because we had people coming, constantly walking in. It's like, no, and there was one right across the street. We would send them across the street. I won't mention because they're no longer there. But anyways, we had to kind of put a 15% discount on everything in our store.
Right.
For people that brought in proper medical documentation. Because when you're teaching people a lesson for a while, like a year, when we first opened up, it was more you're signing this, you're using it for this. We were trying to teach people how to get the proper documentation. People get lazy. So you're right. So we gave an incentive and added a 15% medical discount on your edibles and smokables in our store.
Nice.
Well, it was amazing how many old people, especially old people, because they're stubborn. Trust me on this one.
They're frugal.
Frugal.
They're frugal.
That's a good way of putting it.
Frugal.
Yeah, I like frugal.
Yeah.
Okay, they're frugal. Anyways, they started coming in a lot more randomly faster, and it was more.
So, do you track your members?
Yes.
So that what they're using it for and how they help. So a fair bit of data.
Oh yes.
You must have collected by this time as well.
Yes, because a lot of our clients will graduate. And when I say graduate, they'll go from, we work with all our clients to see exactly what's their best need and work with them to give their best bang for their buck, basically. So if they need to get all the way up to where they're using a pure fecal oil from us, well then that might save them a little money instead of eating one of those gummies, because they taste darn good, but if you're
too good.
Yeah. If you're one of those clients, and so we kind of cater a lot to everything, because like everything in our store is basically all done: oils, sobs, tinctures, everything by me and the wife. All the candy made by me and the Candyman. Yeah, I just can't stop creating it.
So you're living with a cloud over your head. At any moment they could come
I'm
in.
not going to say cloud. We never say cloud. I always push that off to the side. It's just over there. It's off to the side.
Okay.
Just off to the side.
So you're optimistic?
God. Well, I know that
you're allowed to be you're allowed to be more than one thing. You can be optimistic and you can be concerned.
We have the respect of our local RCMP. I know that. Because there has been different things that I just, I think the local RCMP, whether or not they would say we are an illegal store, because whether or not they're going to call and say, is there any illegal stores, and they're going to have to come up or not, blah, blah. I don't know how it works. We don't know how it works. Right. So it's, we go day by day, and we figure it out.
You're prepared to have the raid happen.
If it does,
that could happen.
It does. We're looking at possibly maybe trying to put together and try to get an injunction if we can in place.
Right. You do something preemptive.
Yes.
There's an application with Health Canada for a medical distribution license. Are you familiar with that? John Conroy talked about that.
A little bit. Haven't really looked at it a lot. The wife would probably I know she has probably 10 times over right over. I know.
Yeah, you're probably on top of all these things.
Just, we have so much going on. We're also everything, trying to keep the supply up for also our clients, because we're having
So you've got a little bit less stock, I would imagine, than you would normally have.
to a point, but it's also we're less staffed. We're meaning to be both areas, both ends. Like today, working in the garden, working in the store. One of us has to be at each end. Basically, today one of those spots ain't filled because I'm here. Plus, I had to do a little pickup. Besides saying hi to you guys.
Well, I'm really glad you came. I think it's important that we get these messages out about what's going on.
No, we have to keep standing up.
You're aware that in Vancouver, the city council here passed a motion to allow the dispensing of cannabis to address the opioid crisis, and including low barrier access.
Low barrier.
Low barrier. We've yet to test that, but we're close. I would really highly recommend that some other groups think about doing that. That a medical dispensing of cannabis to address the overdose crisis means a medical cannabis dispensary.
And not the dosage is what the government wants. There is no possibly way you're talking to a person that got off opiates after 25 years. Your dosage of an edible and THC has to be at a certain peak, otherwise you'll not have the feeling that your body's going to be required to help you get off those opiates.
So 10 milligrams is not going to do it for most people, is what you're saying?
Well, 10 milligrams of what percentage is what I'd really like to know what they're putting in there.
What does that really mean?
Yeah, that's my question to the government. That's the big one. What's the percentage that
I would imagine that they're going by, basic standards or whatever that have been around. That a 10 milligram dose is probably less than half of what's going on here.
Yeah.
But it's probably pretty mild.
Yes.
By their own design, it's probably pretty mild.
I'm figuring that, like one of our gummies, they say like a $10 gummy, that you're going to be buying upwards of $100+ worth of their edibles.
To match that.
And the quality, who knows? We don't know. What they're going to offer is another thing. I
think 10 milligrams, in what we call milligrams here, is probably the right dose for people that have never eaten cannabis before. That's probably where you start.
That's where we always stay at our store. Always start slow.
Yeah.
Start slow.
Start at a lower dose. Go slow from there. At the Symposium, there was a doctor that works with a dispensary in Langley, I believe, that was on one of the panels. And she said she starts, newbies, rookies, people who've never used it before, at 2.5 milligrams and goes up from there. But in my experience, 10 milligrams is probably not going to set anybody off that I've met to any great degree in a way that they don't like. And it's something that's usually noticeable to some degree for most people. So it's a good place to start. But it's certainly not where daily users, that's not their requirement.
Anybody that's
and
using
for medical use,
no. It's not even
to get off of opioids.
No.
Not even.
They will not be. No. And then somebody trying to get off opiates, trying to be able to afford to pay the price that they want to do. That's ridiculous. You wouldn't be able to.
That's right, and that's where they're talking low barrier access in the city's motion.
Yeah.
And that's where the whole government scheme doesn't fit. That low barrier access, meaning for people with financial barriers, that they get cannabis at a drastically reduced price, certainly from what is going on in the open market right now.
And not taxed at 29.3%.
Exactly,
come on now.
Exactly, and so they're going to have to allow for that model, I believe, and that model needs to be licensed and approved by all levels of government. That's what has to happen, but the requirements can't be on the providers to provide less to the people that need it.
No.
We need to be able to provide good quality cannabis flowers, extracts, and edibles.
Yes, safe.
Good quality, food safe products to people at prices that are affordable. And this commodity...
Or teach people how to do it themselves, grow it themselves.
Well, sure. But even prices that are affordable.
Yes.
And reasonable.
Yes.
There's just a little bit of reasonableness involved here.
No.
I mean, people have been making a fortune on selling cannabis for a long time. Some people have spent a lifetime in prison because of selling cannabis, as the government has tried to protect interests. But the price of cannabis has always been determined by these prohibitions, the risks that people are taking that inflates the prices.
Yeah.
And it's got nothing to do with what it actually costs to produce it. So it's corrupt, and until it's not corrupt, we're going to keep fighting it for sure. But the way that we fight it is through these new dispensaries, these dispensaries that now need to be allowed to provide people reasonable access at low barrier to address the overdose crisis. And as a secondary, those people that are sick, suffering, and dying for other reasons besides the opioid crisis, they get to have some access too.
You should have the right to choose where you want to get
Exactly.
So if you want to come to me or you to get your smoke or your edibles, that's your choice to go and do that.
It ain't nobody's business but yours and mine.
As a Canadian citizen, you have the right. You want pharmaceuticals? Or do you want to come to a friend that knows what they're doing, how to do it, and get it safely?
Yeah. Or even a friend that doesn't know how to do it and isn't doing it safely, and you got to have the right to go there too.
Yes.
If it's your friend. If it's somebody that's going to put a shingle up over top of a storefront, then it's a little bit different.
Yes. But
if there are inherent harms and dangers in somebody not doing it right and not doing it safely, and then selling it to Joe Blow walking down the street because he's got a sign out here, this stuff's for sale, then I believe that our government, our public servants have a role to play in that. That if there's harm that's happening because of something like that, then there are regulations that can address that.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons we have public servants, is to address those harms that can be caused that way. And we expect them to be servants of the public and to regulate them in ways that make sense. And anytime you're trying to regulate anything, it's a balance between human rights, because you're taking away this person's to do what they want. If they want to buy something unsafe,
this is what
that's up to them.
I see the CSU taking away your right as Canadian, breaking a federal law by taking medicine away as a Canadian citizen. That's your right. So they can come in and have the power to take your Canadian right away. That's
not right. That's not right.
Like breaking the federal law. Like you're overstepping something here. So I don't understand how this is okay. So court, I guess.
And at the root of it is not a government that cares about your rights or protecting people or making sure that the people that are getting helped continue to get help. It's not anything about any of that. Their only concern is that you're stepping on toes of people that are making money, that are friends of theirs, or that have a license from them. I mean, there's some of the corruption involved. $300,000 to be one of Trudeau's growers. Well, and then you've got to institute level 5 security. So, $1 million in costs for...
Okay, so this is, I believe, one of the new ones coming to Seashell is actually a holding company that has gotten a rec application in.
And they got a license.
Yes. Okay. This is I haven't got all the information, but this is one of the new ones that came to Seashell. One of the 4. I believe that holding company might be an LP grower over here in Vancouver, somewhere in the valley.
Oh yeah.
It's very interesting.
Wouldn't be surprised.
That's just interesting to me that just came in this little.
The corruption that's involved in this is very much like what's going on here in Vancouver with City Hall and the taxis.
Yeah.
City Hall takes a huge licensing fee from these taxis, and now the taxis want the government to protect them from Uber and from people using their own private cars with just an app. And there's no reason for the delay in having that happen. There's no reason for all of these restrictions and regulations and roadblocks, except to protect those taxi drivers who have paid the government a whole bunch of protection money to do the job. And and here we are with cannabis. It's exactly the same thing. It's just protection money. And
control.
That's what's always happened. I mean, before we had democracy and freedom and this type of thing going on, there was kings and queens and tyrants and dictators and those things, and corruption was the name of the game.
Yeah.
Corruption is what got everything done. It was all about corruption. You had to know somebody, you had to be paying off somebody, the queen had to,
The higher above.
you know, they're all getting their cut. And we fought our way into so-called freedom here, you know, with people, you know, sending our family members off to war to take bullets so that we could protect ourselves from
Ever
another
freedom.
tyrant who,
Ever freedom.
you know.
That's right.
And so now we've got sort of freedom here, but we've let it slip away because these same groups that we should have been fighting against and worried about still have had access to our democracy, and we've let it slip away.
Oh.
And now it's corrupt, and we all know it's corrupt.
That's the problem.
You know?
We all know it's corrupt, but we don't get anything. We can't do fuck all about it. 'Cause they
Well,
have
we
that
can.
money.
We
well,
can.
we can to a point.
Well, look
but
what you're doing.
Well, I know.
Look what you're
That's what I'm
doing.
saying, to a point.
Well,
But you
lots
know
of
what?
people don't, but look what you're doing.
I know, but I'm saying, if they really want to just fucking do that and squish us, they can really do this. We can come out of that squish. I can, trust me, I can always pop up. They will never be able to squish me because they can never stop me from growing. They can never stop me from baking. Those two things right there, they will never, ever stop me. They can stop me from having a storefront, to wanting to do it the proper government, taxpayer way. But if
You'll just go back underground.
they force me, it's not. I will just gift it out. That's all I will do. I will be the gift. I
have some inside information.
I will be the gift of candy. I will be the gifting Candyman.
I'm in a unique.
That's it.
I'm in a bit of a unique space, you know, in the cannabis community. I have inside information on things. You know, I know a lot of people, and I know, and I'm gonna announce it here right now. You are not alone, sir.
I know.
You speak for a lot of other people who not only are just going to, you know, keep doing what they're doing, even though the government says you can't. They're not going to do it from a storefront anymore. They're not going to put their name on a list anymore. But they're still, not only are they still going to help people, they're still going to grow this amazing plant and say fuck you to a government that would tell you you can't. But they're going to get more motivated.
That's right.
They're going to be more motivated. And, you know, my son said to me at one time many years ago, we need a revolution, Dad. We need Che Guevara. And I said, well, you know, Che wouldn't be successful here because, you know, the enemy of our freedom are very sophisticated. And they understand how to keep people occupied and overwhelmed and distracted and entertained and a little bit broke and using alcohol and all these other distractions and mechanisms that they have in place, so that it's difficult for us to motivate. We're very divided in so many ways in our community. We're not all poor enough really to do that.
Nope.
But they're hurting people in significant ways. They're overstepping their boundaries. They've become arrogant in their defiance of freedom and what the role is really supposed to
That's what
be.
I'm saying.
They don't.
The power of them is crazy.
They know we know, and they don't care anymore because they got us, right?
That's right.
And their big machine is going to win that election either way. It's going to be the green or the red or the orange, and one of those and the blue, can't forget them, and one of them is going to win, but all of them are going to be the same as the rest and working for the financial elite who has the reins of the whole democracy here.
We all know how it works.
So we all know it's corrupt.
We all know.
We all would love it to stop. But like I say, you know, most people
You're not
don't
gonna stop
understand
us.
that they can. Maybe they don't have hope. Maybe they don't know what they can do. But if we all started doing something, if we all stop, you know, just being, sleep about the whole thing,
That's what I'm saying.
we can do this, you know.
Get to the mail
And
way.
you
do
know,
whatever you have to do.
put the
I
pressure
mean,
on
you
your
gotta
public
speak-
servant.
You got to speak, because even like when you have a cancer patient that comes to you and you're making a full extraction oil for them and they're actually surviving. We have 3 clients that we have gotten their cancer cured and have documentation on that hospital records. One gentleman had brain cancer. Now when you're making that for somebody and they're going to try to go get that from the government store, that is going to be 1/10, if they're lucky, the strength of what we can make for pure full extraction oil that's curing that cancer.
Yeah.
That person is not going to be alive.
You can't stand by and let that happen.
No.
You can't.
No.
And nor should you.
No, that's not. I mean,
The government's
I
putting
just
us in
said
positions that is extremely unfair.
No.
You know?
Like I said, they will never stop me and my wife. That just,
You're similar to Jerry Martin. And Jerry couldn't stop either. He couldn't stop.
No, I know.
And it's very, very unfair for a government to expect him to stop doing what he's doing.
Well,
the community needed what he was doing. And even if there wasn't 1,000, he had 1,000 members in a town with about 1,000 people. Even if he had only 2 people
just like what
in that
Jerry,
community
exactly,
that were getting their life enhanced and prolonged, instead of sick and suffering.
You're in the age.
Who's the government to come and say stop?
That's right, because I was brought up, and if I seen somebody injured on the side of the road, no different, I'm going to stop.
You have to stop.
I'm going to stop. So
Yeah.
no different than somebody that's suffering. I'm going to help them.
Yeah, you got to help them. You can't
And
stand
if I
by.
can help them somehow, well, guess what? You can't stop me from helping them.
That's it.
'Cause it's no
Well, they
different.
can, but it's going to take handcuffs.
Well,
It's going to take handcuffs, and it's going to take a cage.
That's basically how
It's going to take a cage,
No,
and they'll
that's
do
not
it. You know, they've been doing it.
Wow,
We
man.
live in a corrupt fucking world here,
I
and they've been
know,
putting our
I
friends and
know.
families in handcuffs and cages and ruining them financially and reputation-wise and all the rest of it in this absolute war that they're waging on people that would choose to use cannabis. But it's way more than that. For me, it's about freedom.
Well,
You know,
of course it is.
I drank alcohol until I was 19 because I wasn't free to do it. That was my mentality. That's who I was. Like, I didn't choose that. I didn't I didn't tick a box off somewhere and say, yeah, give me that. Let me be the rebellious person
Yeah,
who's going to
alcohol,
have to drink
yeah.
because you tell me I'm not allowed to. And I'm just going to fucking do it and say, fuck you, because that's who I am. And I didn't ask for that. That's just me. And that's a whole bunch of my friends and other people that I know. And it's not fair to me. It's not fair to us that a government comes and says, you can't do this. I turned 19. I said, now I'm allowed to do that? I don't think I want to drink. I tried it a lot.
I don't wanna
Doesn't
pay any
doesn't
money.
really work for me. You know, I'm not going to do that. Oh, weed? Yeah, I'm going to keep using weed. Maybe only because it was still illegal. You know,
Back
maybe
then.
at 19,
Back then.
maybe at 19, maybe because it was only still illegal. But after a while, it became something I relied on, something I understood was helping me, something that I really got upset about how much, what, I'm a criminal? Because I'm an adult, and what? You know? I mean, it's insanity, it's wrong. It's like the frog in the tepid water. You know, you can put a frog into tepid water and you can heat it up slowly and he'll sit right there and get cooked to death. You know, because he doesn't know the water's boiling all around him because it's just, you know, it came on slowly. And that's what's going on here. We're in boiling water. We don't even know it.
Oh.
You know, if we wake up, we'll realize we're slaves to these people. We've been kidnapped by these assholes. We pay them, and they're putting us in fucking cages. And we're paying them to put us in cages. You're in court because you had possession of some flowers that you thought might help you and your friends feel better, but you're in court there, and you're going to be penalized for it, and you're paying for the judge, and you're paying for the prosecutor, and you're paying for your lawyer, and everybody that works in the court, and the lights that are on, and everything that's going on there, we're paying for, and they're using our money against us. Uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh. Did I break it?
Uh-oh.
Gibby.
Uh-oh. I don't know.
I don't see it
Watch,
yet.
I see it. It's underneath.
Is it broken?
I don't think. It's right at the corner of this leg right there.
We have a technical break here, folks. We have
I don't know,
technical
bro.
trouble on the show.
I see it over here. I just have a look.
Oh, I think I see
You got it.
I think
You
I
got
see
it?
it too. Yes, I do.
Yeah, there it is.
All right.
Did it save or break?
It's okay.
It's saved.
It's okay.
It's saved.
It's okay.
It's not broken.
This is my mustache toker from Gibson Glass. It's the only place you can get them. And they're beautiful and amazing, and I love it, you know, because it just feels so nice. I love glass,
Yep.
and it captures the little bit of resin there, too, and it looks funny and everything, and I like humor. But they break, damn it.
Yeah,
And-
well, that was closer, Neil.
which
That
kind of
was
makes it special, you know. I mean, things that are fragile are more special, and you've got to be careful with them. But I've broken so many over the years, and Gibson's going to make me one that's less destructible, he says. So
Less Neil destructible.
yeah, he's got one
Nice.
coming just for me, and probably that'll be a thing after that, is he'll probably make them less destructible. I don't know. But I got a whole bunch of them where the stem is broken off. I got a few others where the tips of the mustache are broken off, but they still work.
still
So,
work.
you know, I got them hidden all over the place, so I always have one when I want one. But that one didn't break this time, so that's really, really cool. But anyway, where were we? We're just about done. I think you covered what you're going to do. You're going to keep doing what you're doing in some way,
We're
shape,
going to
or
be standing
form.
up for a fight, 100%.
Are you prepared to go to court?
Oh, yes.
That's going to be part of the battle if they...
We've already been. I mean, last time we went to court, it was 2.5 years, 25. I don't really want to have to go and do the stress that was.
Yeah, we see what Jerry Martin's going through.
Yeah.
You know, it's not fun.
It's a lot of stress on you. It takes a lot of toll on you.
And if they do actually manage to make you close your doors, then it's that added stress that, you know.
But we have 2 licenses there at that location. We have a gifts and glassware under the S&M and also under the S&M medicinal sweet shop. So we actually have 2 business licenses. So the only thing they're going to be able to do is clamp down that we can't have any kind of cannabis product in that store. So put a notice on that is what they'll have to do.
Right.
Seize anything that's in our store that way, but the glasses, giftware would always stay open. So we would be another information store. And one step at a time again.
Well, I mean, we're with you. I wish you all the luck in the world in fighting those guys down, speaking truth to power if they do arrive. Shaming your RCMP if they're helping them.
Well,
I gotta say,
that's why like it's really curious for me and the wife, because our local RCMP, I believe, locally with our small community, we have a good backing and knowledge with the RCMP. So, for them to come and have to do that, but basically they're there just to make sure we don't bother to see it.
I do want to mention that you've been a contributor to the Cannabis Substitution Project many times.
Yes.
And I can't thank you enough for that. It helps our project continue, and you certainly have done that. And I would imagine that of your 500 or so members, that there's members there that are also using cannabis to help, with the replacement for opioids. There's studies that just came out this last week that are really good, showing that the people that use a lot of cannabis use less opioids. And,
it's 100% true. I mean,
so with the opioid crisis, I think that there's really no moral grounds for shutting you down at all. And I really hope that that doesn't happen to you.
We just said one day at a time, and we want to work with the government, and like you said, keep stores like us open. It's a safe objective for other people. So
Well, thank you so much.
Always good to be here.
Always good to have you.
Guys, gotta go
get
a ferry, gotta get home.
Maybe next time you could have Michelle with you here, and you won't have to worry about your store, and that would be awesome as well.
Yeah, that
Shout
would
out
be
to
nice.
Michelle. She does such amazing work in being a driving force behind what you guys are doing there. And as I mentioned before,
she's a motivator there for sure.
And as I said, you're right one of the main battle fronts of this fight to get access and keep access for people. And thank you so much for doing that. And thanks for coming on the show.
Always good, man.
Very good.
We'll come back.
Very good. All right. Oh, and I got all these goodies. Support your local dispensary. Dispensaries provide access to what the government is not and what people really need. And we're hoping that we can provide a model here in Vancouver that will be licensed by the city, and that can happen in other municipalities right across Canada. Part of that fight to achieve that is being done with the Cannabis Substitution Project. The CSP has been operating now for close to 3 years. And we give away cannabis in the form of high-dose edibles and in care packs to people on the downtown east side that are willing to line up and get those care packs. And we've had great success in helping people not just reduce but eliminate the use of opioids and street drugs, and also gain all the benefits that cannabis provides in the form of better sleep, better appetite, less pain, and just an overall well-being, as it supplements the endocannabinoid system and helps provide all of those wonderful benefits. I believe we have a video. Let's have a look at our video from the CSP. So this is clips from the last few weeks at the Cannabis Substitution Project, some interviews with some people that are in our lineup and getting our care packs and getting the benefits of that.
To Debbie Hellion.
And a real big thanks to Debbie Hellion for putting this together. She's an awesome photojournalist working on the downtown east side, capturing much of what's going on down there. And she's become a big part of our project in providing these videos and these interviews. So kudos to Debbie. Thank you so much. And let's have a look at that.
Are you on?
I'm on. We're on.
Okay, we're on. Now, you got some questions for me?
Yes. What brings you in the marijuana lineup today for the edibles?
Edibles, yes, I'm here for medicinal purposes. I medicate with this stuff. I think this line is awesome. The people who are in it And this whole project, I'm in it.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. So do you come here twice a week?
You know what? I'm random when I come.
Oh, you're random?
I'm
Okay.
random because I just live down the street. I never know what day it is, but I know it's here. And when I see the line, I know what it's for.
It's Sunday and Thursdays.
All right. Well, for now, just put something there. I'll go get you another.
We're one ahead of the
Gummy ball. Sorry, no longer have the gummy bears.
So what brings you in our lineup?
Edibles and marijuana, for sure.
And what does it do for you?
Keeps me off heroin.
Oh, I'm so happy. I'm so happy. Because
It really
that's
works.
what it really works. So are you on any other
Yeah,
byproducts?
I'm taking, what's it called again? It's a type of morphine anyway. I can't remember what it's called. But,
Okay.
It's a replacement for methadone.
Yeah, I can't remember what it's called.
But it doesn't work for pain, right? None of these things that they give us that are supposed to be for pain don't work for pain.
Oh.
And so get medical products and they work for pain.
Oh, good. So do you get the CBD edibles or the half and half?
I would if I didn't need so much pain relief.
Legalization cupcake.
We got a cupcake there for you.
We're celebrating legalization today.
I gave it to her. I went
5 times the legal limit.
Hi, how are you today?
All right, yourself here.
Pretty good. What brings you here today to our Cannabis Substitution Project?
Well, I'd like to help to give back to the community for one thing, and you know what? Marijuana saves me from using harder drugs.
And how does our Cannabis Substitution Project help you out?
It helps me a lot. It helps me really a lot because I have what is called tinnitus, and I've gone to all kinds of specialists, and there's no cure for it. But the only thing that maintains it takes it away is this THC that I come and get every week.
And how long does that package last you?
One package will only last for about 2 or 3 days. Yeah, but I mean it still helps because it gets me to the next couple of days.
And then you come back.
Then I come back again.
Hi, how are you today? Great, thanks. So what brings you to our Cannabis Substitution Project?
Well, lately I've been dealing with some mental health.
Uh-huh.
So I come here and I'm able to get some marijuana and get some edibles and stuff that I use for my anxiety.
And it helps?
Yeah, it does help.
The edibles help more than the
edibles,
smoking?
The edibles help a little bit more for pain.
For pain?
Yeah.
Okay, so you get the CBD?
Yeah, CBD.
So how would you feel if the Vancouver police came here and shut us down?
I would fight for that.
You'd fight for that?
I would fight for against that.
Yeah.
Good choice. I like that. I think it's fun.
And so what brings you here today?
The edibles help me to maintain life away from addiction, as well as it helps me with pain. I have recently lost, well, not recently for one of my children, but I've lost 2 children to fentanyl, and it's been a really hard road for me. And marijuana is helping me keep the depression at bay, and it also helps me from going back out and relapsing. And that's why I come when I can to talk to Neil and the group here for doing what they do, because it helps keep me from going back out.
Neil's. Hi, how are you doing today?
I'm good.
So what brings you in our Cannabis Substitution Project today?
For the edibles, I'm on Suboxone, and on the days that I don't have or I don't feel very well, this helps tremendously. Even the days when I haven't had no Suboxone, this made me feel well, so that there's no pain, no hot, cold flashes. I just felt normal, which is really, really good.
Sandwich or cupcake?
Hi, so how are you today?
I'm very good. How are you, Jeff?
I'm doing wonderful. It's a great day in November, couldn't complain. So what brings you in our Cannabis Substitution Project?
Edibles.
Edibles.
Edibles. Oh, I've got bad nerves. Yum. Bad nerves.
Bad nerves? And how does
I
it
got
make...
hit by a car.
Oh my God.
The edibles.
And the edibles work better than medication?
Medication works too, but it says right on the bottle, you keep taking it, it's gonna kill you.
Oh.
Right? So I don't want to take it.
Okay.
Yeah, cannabis is medicine. There's no question about it. My producer Neil was just pointing out that cannabis is such good medicine because it's a combination of things. It not only helps with pain relief, but it gives you that sense of euphoria if you get enough of it, depending on how much pain you're trying to kill. But it's nature's way of distracting your brain from the pain that you're in, and so that it's a wonderful pain reliever, and it's a great distraction from the pain at the same time. And people are really benefiting from it. And it's just so wrong that the government thinks they should step in the way of people getting that medicine. Nobody's been harmed in almost 3 years of us giving out care packs that include hundreds and hundreds of milligrams every time that we go there twice a week, Thursdays and Sundays at Van Du. We're there at noon to a large lineup of people that have been coming back and getting their care packs for all this time. And it really, really helps people. And as we just heard with the Candyman, the government's there, shutting down the access that they're providing for people to get these things that help them. And it's just not the role of government to do that. The government has no business doing that. Nobody has any business doing that. It's no other adult's right, or no other group of adults' right to go and interfere with some other person who decides they want to get something from some other person. It's their business. It's nobody's business but theirs. So this situation where the government thinks that they have the right to come in and harm people and cause sick people to go without their medicine because they want to protect the financial interests of people who are paying them large fees to do that, that's just corrupt. That's not right. It's nothing right about that. That's criminal. That's where you're purposely, intentionally harming other people to protect your own interests and your own financial interests. It's heinous. It should be stopped immediately. And we need to recognize that's what's going on in this world, especially with the cannabis file, but far more reaching than that are these other areas where government thinks they have the right to come in and interfere with free people's business with each other where no one is being harmed. And we need to stop that, and we need to recognize that that's completely wrong, and that the role of government is intended to be quite the opposite of that. And maybe when we have a society where we all understand that and we have protections in place to prevent that, we'll have a much nicer, friendlier world, and people like these poor people will have no trouble getting access to that which helps them, instead of what's going on now where people can't get access because the government's shut down all the storefront access, and these people get access because they're willing to line up for 2 or 3 hours, even in the rain and the cold weather, to get a care pack of stuff that actually helps them. And the government doesn't want that going on. In fact, what we're doing is illegal, but seems to be tolerated by the city of Vancouver so far. There's other places in other cities where they're trying to do it, and there's opposition, and it's not as easy to do. And it wasn't easy to do here either, but we've managed to establish it and we've got it going on. But how wrong is it that it's our public servants that we have to be afraid of, and that they're the ones that are going to use our money against us and shut down people's access to these things? So I really thank you for watching and letting us get this stuff off our chest in today's show as well as the other shows. For upcoming events, we really don't have any. There's not much going on anywhere. There is the 420 Farmers Market that pop up here and there. I hear they were on Granville Mall there the other night. You can pretty much find them at Thornton Park on Sundays. There's a couple of tables and tents set up there providing access to people. Hopefully there's going to be more of that in the future. There will be some places opening up in response to the city's motion, and some medical dispensaries to target the opioid crisis will be coming to Vancouver, and hopefully it's a model that can carry on from there, and we'll show other people how we can do this, and it's certainly the right thing to do. But as you can tell by the programs we've had here and the guests we've had on, it's quite a fight. We're not there yet, and and we really need help with a lot of these things. So there are ways that you can do things about this. We're not here to just piss you off and make you mad about what's going on in the world that isn't right and how corrupt our government is. We're trying to also say there's things that we can do about it, and you can support these people in the courts, you can support them in their stores, and whatever you think you can do to get the freedom that we deserve, that our children and our grandchildren deserve to have, and that we're responsible for providing to them, that we can obtain these things, and there's things that we can all do about it, and any one of us can't do everything that's needed, but all of us together can all find things to do, and we can all make a little bit of a difference that can make a huge difference, and here's some of the ways that you can do that. I want to thank Cannabis Culture for giving me the space to have this show and get this stuff off my chest, and educate some people, hopefully, and motivate some people and stimulate some action. And I want to thank my producer and Neil for making it work, and wouldn't be able to do it without him, that's for sure. There's other shows here during the week. On Wednesday, tomorrow, there's From Under the Influence with Greg Williams, Marijuana Man, and he tells you from his point of view why these things are crazy, insane, wrong, and all the rest of it. And
he'll tell you a little about growing too. So if you want to overgrow, don't miss a From Under the Influence.
Yeah, he's got good growing sessions on there as well.
He definitely knows his way around a garden.
Good stuff, yeah. And growing is very important. Let's continue to overgrow the government. Grow your own medicine, and why not? It's worth a ton at this point. Strike while the iron's hot. Right now, cannabis is worth thousands of dollars a pound if you do it right. Hopefully that doesn't last for too long, because that's not right, and we'd like to change that. But in any case, also on Friday, Cannabis Culture News Live with Jeremiah Vandermeer and his co-hosts gets you up to date on what's going on in the cannabis world with all kinds of different segments and guests and videos and the other things that Jeremiah does to keep everybody up to date. Saturday, it's High Noon with Boss Lissa. Over 100 shows under her belt now, as we were mentioning in the last couple of shows. She smoked over 100 joints in the show. I think between 6 or 8 people or something like that smoked 100 joints.
I think some people came to 111 joints.
111 joints to mark that moment, and nobody died. We didn't have any need for first responders. Nobody had to call in the authorities.
Yeah, she lived for show 101.
Yes, still going strong.
She was back.
Proving once again that you can ingest large amounts of cannabis and it's nobody's business but yours, because it's no danger to anybody, even including yourself. And so get the government out of the weed business, please. So that's Saturday at High Noon with Boss Lissa. On Monday, it's the 420 Lifestyle Show with BC Bud Gal and Carly Marley. Everything fun about cannabis goes on there as they talk about all the different benefits of cannabis and the fun uses of cannabis and all that kind of stuff.
Last week they did a recap of the Supreme Court case.
Yes, they do serious stuff on that show too. Don't get me wrong. On all these shows, you're going to get the latest news and the updates on what's going on, and so that's happening there too. It's not all just about fun and games with Carly Marley and BC Bud Gal, but they are a lot of fun, and I think that's why so many people tune in and watch that one. And I'll be back next Tuesday for another episode of THC. I want to thank my guests, 8 out of 10 Glenn from CannaMatch.ca. Give their website a couple days before they get all the proper changes made and get back up. And Jerry Martin, of course, for coming in and sharing his time and thoughts with us as he journeys towards his court date and his constitutional challenge on the need for medical dispensaries. And also, my main guest. Oh, it's funny, you smoke this much weed. And we got Doug Sikora, the Candyman, who came and gave us these awesome care packs from the S&M Sweet Shop, doing fine work on the front lines. And support them as well. And support everybody that's going on here. We're a community here. We all need each other. We're all crew. There's no passengers. There's no room for passengers. We're still at war, and we didn't call that war, but we're the ones who have to fight it, and we need everybody. So do your part. Have as much fun as you can doing that. Have as much fun as you can changing the world. We'll see you next week.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi.
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 Hi. It's High Noon here in the studio.
Look at it. Look at the bud.
Right there. so many people, and I was like, whoa, this is amazing. I was like, I have to cross it.
Acronyms, baby.
I love
so
how
he paid
they're
$8
like,
for half a pencil.
I love.
just put it out there.
Hi there, welcome to the 420 Lifestyle Show. I'm Carly Marley. She's taking a dab. Thanks.
We can play the Sickamoose video.
Oh yes, Sickamoose video. Let's play the Sickamoose video.
That's like all over the place, I guess.
It helps the speaker lead his audience into the scene he describes.
Oh, I'm rolling up the fattest joint I could possibly fit in this paper. If it was any bigger, it